Hello, Lockport Township High School District 205, parents and guardians. My name is Bob McBride, Superintendent, and this is your board meeting brief for the Board of Education meeting that we had in the Porter Room at East Campus on Monday, June 20th, 2022. Before I start, I always like to share with our families that our agendas are always available to the public the Wednesday or Thursday before any board meeting. Our next board meeting is Monday, July 18th. So you can look on our website the Wednesday or Thursday before that board meeting to see the complete agenda. Let's get into what our Board of Education worked on June 20th. First and foremost, as we have most of this year, we started with the student acknowledgement. Our board did a resolution to acknowledge Gabe Zacco, a recent LTHS graduate. In the fall, Gabe was on 2 teams that earned IHSA trophies, football and soccer. This spring, in his senior year, he earned medals at the IHSA State Track and Field meet in Charleston, Illinois, in the hurdles. An amazing athlete, and our board wanted to resolve to acknowledge his talent, his persistence, and his dedication. I used that moment to share with our board something that we've been talking about in terms of student reports. Every Board of Education meeting, our board listens to student government give a report from a student point of view of what's happening at Central and happening at East. Right now, as a Board of Education, we are talking about having 2 permanent student representatives each year on the Board of Education. These 2 students would not be voting members, they're not elected, but they would be at the table with us, weighing in on the student perspective for all the deliberations and decisions that we have to make as a board. A very visible reminder to us as the adults and to our public that we are really here for students first. Another highlight I'd like to share is my Superintendent Report, where I shared 2 things with the board. First, a survey that many of you took through Thought Exchange, and then also safety and security. In the Thought Exchange survey that we did at the end of the year, where we asked parents, what are you thinking about for the future? You said 4 things that we will be responsive to as we go into the next school year. First and foremost, safety and security. You are concerned about vaping in the bathrooms, all the way to just safety and security given the kind of events that we've seen in our nation with school place and workplace violence. Second, you were concerned about lunch. For the past 2 years, we've been in the National School Lunch Program, offering free lunches that the federal government reimburses us for to any student who needs it. You've asked that we can move back to our full buffet lunch, and we will be doing that. And then you asked us to continue 2 things. 1, positive teacher-student relationships and rich courses. Also, you would like to see in the future as many athletic and activities experiences for our students as possible. We're committed to both of those. On a more somber note, I did use my superintendent's report to share with our board and with our public many of the things that we do to create a safe and a secure environment, especially given what happened in Uvalde, Texas. Let me give you a few things that we work on all the time. All of our doors are locked all the time. The only way that people can enter our buildings, or should enter our buildings, is through a vestibule where they have to ring in twice, that's staffed by a staff member, so eyes are on. And every visitor who comes to any of our buildings has to run their state ID or driver's license through a system that goes through the state police database. Previously, we employed 2 public safety officers. These were individuals who had police experience, but were not active current police department members. We're moving now to a school resource officer model, where we will have 2 Lockport police officers whose sole responsibility is Central and East campuses. We use high-definition cameras in all parts of both of our buildings and on our school buses so that we can see what is going on in those spaces. We have a consultant that assists us with cyber surveillance so that if there's any kind of threat that might come to us from social media, or if there is threats between students, he can assist us with that. As administrators, we attend many trainings from the National Threat Assessment Center, which is run by the Secret Service, to give you an idea of who governs that in the United States. And then finally, we believe that anybody who sees danger should be able to initiate a lockdown. So if you walk through Central or East Campus, you will see blue buttons that allow any person, student, staff, administrator, who sees danger to press one of those buttons and lock down the entire facility. We are dedicated to the safety and the security of all of our staff members, and especially your children while they're here on campus. A few other things that we worked on in addition to those. We renewed our insurance coverage. We are required to have liability insurance. We work with a liability insurer called CLIC. And what CLIC does is a very important thing for our taxpayers across our entire attendance area. And that is that liability insurance. It's required by law, but also it prevents our taxpayers from any kind of cost that we would have to pass on due to negligence, a liability we have, or a lawsuit that requires a judgment. Renewing with our liability insurer is one way that we're financially responsible for you. Important, I mentioned earlier, we renewed our full buffet food service with Quest Food Services, and our board approved the menu pricing for the 2022-2023 school year. The past 2 years, we've been doing the school lunch program, as I mentioned. This past year, we passed out almost 600,000 free meals to families. Every meal that we passed out, the federal government reimbursed us. We're going to shift back to a full service buffet food service, but that does not mean that families that qualify for the National Free and Reduced Lunch Program will not have the opportunity to apply. They will, and you'll hear more about applying for a free or reduced lunch program as we get closer to the opening of school. But we've taken the first step to go back to the lunch service you might have known pre-pandemic. Finally, two things that the board approved. We approved the first step in completely re-roofing East Campus, which should be about an $8 million expense. And you might, as a taxpayer, ask yourself, how can the district afford an $8 million expense and not go out, for example, for a referendum? Well, it's through astute saving and astute spending and financial decisions that fund balances in our operation and maintenance fund allow us to have that kind of cash on hand to do those kind of major renovations that protect a major institution like East Campus. And also, I know that all of our students, especially the class of 2023, will be very glad to know that the Board of Education approved prom at the Museum of Science and Industry next year. We just approved a contract with MIS to return to that great location for one of the most important events for many of our seniors and for other students as well. Thank you so much for listening to this board meeting brief for June 20th, 2022. Thank you for your support and for everything you do to raise up your children. And as always, go Porters.